Hey Queens, it's your girl Tayana Elise, and welcome to the Holy It Girl podcast where I help you integrate biblical principles into your daily lives, such as your relationships, business, career, etc. Today we are talking about a topic that is near and dear to my heart. We are talking about abandonment trauma. And usually I have talking points when it comes to talking about topics and doing these podcasts. I have a little outline, but today I just kind of want to speak from the heart. So excuse me, bear with me if I'm all over the place, y'all. I'm going to pull out a scripture if I can. But I feel like a lot of women, especially within the Black community, deal with abandonment trauma, whether that's a mother who wasn't there, a father who wasn't there. And when we talk about abandonment trauma, I think we think of a physically absent parent, which was my situation, but there also is emotional abandonment as well, where your parent wasn't really there for you in an emotional sense, or maybe they were there, but there wasn't really a space for you to kind of express your feelings, or maybe they worked all the time, or whatever the case may be, but they still technically lived in a house with you. So I kind of just want to talk about abandonment trauma and how it shows up in both our personal and professional lives, because the older I got, the more I realized how it played a role in what I thought was only my personal life with men, like the type of men I would attract, or even when it came to the lack of boundaries within relationships. But then I realized that as an entrepreneur, or just anyone who's in the professional space, even if you work a 9 to 5, either way, it affects you professionally as well. And so I just want to get into the nitty and gritty of that today. From all over the place, I'm sorry, like I said, there is no prompt, but I was just like, you know what? I need to talk about this. Let me just start by telling my story. So, growing up, within, I think it's like the first 5 years, me and my mom, it was just me and my mom. And she was a single mother for those first 5 years. And honestly, little after that, but I'll get into why I'm saying kind of not after that, but still after that. So, my biological father wasn't in my life at all. And this was a really hard thing for me to deal with. I remember me and my mom having talks about it as a kid, but I was always really lucky because I think around the age of like 5 or 6, my stepdad came into my life. Him and my mom were dated at that time, but he took me under his wing as if I was his own. Like, really praise God, because God really has been, like, when I look back on my life, God really has been looking out for me and blessing me, because I could have had that. I could have not had a dad at all, but God put him in that situation. And then his entire family took me under his wing. Like, my Nana, I love her to death. And so I was really lucky and really blessed to have them. But what I realized is it was really hard for me as a teenager. And then I realized how I dealt with men. It played a big role in that. And then I realized even in my professional life as an adult, it plays a lot of roles. There's even more to that whole story, but I don't want to get too in depth because it involves other people. And also, I don't have a heart of revenge. I feel like I have forgiven. I think there still are things that I'm still working on when it comes to all that. But I think growing up, I had a lot of anger. And this anger, this rage really stemmed from, now that I understand it, this anger, this rage, I feel like it stemmed from that abandonment trauma. And even now, it shows up in my life of me kind of being like a control freak in a way. I mean, I've worked on it a lot. So it's not what it used to be. But I learned that because I didn't have control of, the one of the most important things, my parent being in my life, I now, as an adult or even a teenager, I strive to have control. So in relationships, this may look like, because I subconsciously have this fear of a man abandoning me, and it's a subconscious thing. I used to try to have control over the situation, and actually, my current relationship, within like the earlier years, that's kind of what was the situation of, every second of where are you, or what are you doing, or every little thing. But you don't own people. When you're in a relationship, you don't own that person, and sometimes it can come off as if you're suffocating that person. You can actually end up pushing that person away, even down to everything he did. I even feel like I have this mindset of trying to fix it, or just having control of the situation. Whereas when you're in a relationship, you have to allow your man room to grow, be himself, allow him room to develop into who he's going to be. and you can't like be all up under him all the time. Like, yeah, you want to be up all. Yeah, you could be up under him, but it can't be because you're worried about him leaving you. You know, a good relationship should have like security. And so you aren't meant to control your partner. Whereas it's like every little thing he's doing, what are you doing? Or where like that's just not healthy to like suffocate a person in that way. You don't own your partner. And you have to allow them room to breathe, allow them room to be themselves, allow them time to have time by themselves. And so this was something I really had to work on when it comes to like my trust issues, my abandonment issues, and things like that when it came to a relationship, because it can actually create a very toxic and unhealthy environment. But it was up to me to recognize this about myself. That may be something that you notice and maybe subconsciously doing, because it also may cause like codependency. Codependency was something that like really was happening for me due to my abandonment trauma, where it's like you always want to be up under the person you're with. And still to this day, like I'll be up under my man, but it's more in a healthy way where like he can go enjoy his day and I may hear from him in the morning. The rest of the day he go and do his own thing, and then I might hear from him in the night. If we want to talk all day, that's cool, but it's not a necessity. And like, you know, I really have learned to become a little bit more secure instead of having that like anxious attachment style. But I remember there was what I've noticed, there was a time where there was codependency, and but it was in an unhealthy way. And this caused and the codependency caused a lot of problems, because it was like I was trying to fill the void of my father within another man subconsciously. Obviously you don't consciously be like, oh, I'm trying to find my biological father and fill that void. No, that takes years of like therapy or like just realizations that you're coming to. But I'm trying to fill that void of emptiness within another person, and they were never meant to fill that void. They were never meant to make me whole. Because when you come in a relationship, y'all both are supposed to already be whole. So when y'all come together, it's supposed to just like you are bearing fruit. Like you all are, it's additional happiness. It shouldn't be I'm looking to that other person for happiness, which I think a lot of people are doing in today's world. Is there are many women who have abandonment trauma, and you're trying to fill that void within another person, but that void is actually meant for God. And so my relationship with God actually helped with healing my abandonment trauma. I still always recommend therapy, but because no longer was I trying to fill a void within another person, I started to fill that void with God, which is actually better because people can leave you. At the end of the day, someone can wake up tomorrow, and I'm not saying like this is going to happen in your situation, but at the end of the day, someone can wake up tomorrow and decide that they don't want to be in a relationship with you. And if your confidence, if your self esteem, or everything is put within another person, that gives another person so much power to actually break you. But when you put your entire confidence and everything within God, and, you know, fill that void with God, which he was the person who was supposed to fill it to begin with, now you have this unshakable confidence. You have this unshakable faith that God is with you at all times. I don't know how to explain it. Actually, I do know how to explain it, but it's like I know I'm going to be okay no matter the situation, because I know God has my back. I know God didn't bring me this far to drop me. I know he's always looking out for me. So I know he brings me joy and peace that surpasses all understanding. So I don't have to go look for a man in order to fill that void, because I'm already whole within myself. So now when I'm in a relationship, I already have my own purpose. I already have my own drive. I already have my own values, like my own values that God has worked within me. And so now when I'm coming to the relationship, I can pour from a filled cup because God is constantly refilling my cup. Does that make sense? And so a lot of us have low self-esteem, and what's happening due to the abandonment trauma is we have this low self-esteem, and we constantly need the reassurance. And not saying that reassurance is bad, because, you know, I still need a little reassurance from my man. Like, I'm not saying that, but, you know, it's like overly like you constantly are putting yourself down. You're constantly saying you're ugly. You're constantly saying you don't have anything good going for yourself. Like the talk around yourself is so negative that you are literally needing, not it's additional for overflow, but needing a man to fill that cup because it's diminished yourself. You have low confidence. And what I realized is with abandonment trauma is it caused my low confidence, because subconsciously there was this feeling of worthlessness. Subconsciously, it felt like I wasn't good enough for my father to want to be in my life. And this is what it did to me. And it was, I didn't realize that was my thought process, but I just never felt good enough. It was always feeling like subconsciously that I was never good enough. Always looking at what the next person had because feeling like what I had wasn't enough. And I realized all that stemmed from my father abandoning me. So now, because I have this subconscious wound of not feeling good enough in my relationship, I'm afraid that the person is going to see that I'm not good enough and they're going to leave me just like my father did. But this is all subconscious. And honestly, your subconscious mind is what's really running the show. So it's like, if you're struggling with building your relationship with God and reading your Bible, you have no idea where to start, you need the Holy It Girl Bible Study Journal. It makes Bible study simple. Within the journal, it follows the SOAP method when studying your Bible, and it gives you a guide on how to apply what you're reading to your life. I'm telling you, it doesn't get better at journaling and Bible studying than this. Okay, I'll let you get back to the episode, but I'm telling you, you don't want to miss out on this tool. Bye, Queen. I understand all this now, but when you're blind to what's really going on and that you're in need of that healing, you're just living life according to your childhood traumas. Your natural response is of how you do things is just based off of your trauma because you haven't taken the time to heal. And this is why I always promote healing before getting in a relationship. And not saying you're gonna ever be perfect, because I'm not perfect now. Look, still stuff I'm working on. But I think it's so important that we take that time to become self-aware. When I think healing, I think of more of becoming self-aware. Because yes, things can trigger me every now and then, but am I aware of what triggers me? Have I thought of coping mechanisms to help me overcome those triggers? Have I thought of better ways to manage those things, of those character flaws? Because for me, it might have led to really, I'm scared, but I want to lash out at someone. But my lashing out where I feel triggered is really a coping mechanism. It's really a way for me to try to keep myself safe. When in reality, I should be vulnerable with the person that I love and allow them know, like, this makes me feel uncomfortable, or when you do this, it triggers me. Like having those vulnerable conversations. But a lot of times, instead of being vulnerable, I would go to lashing out. So when we talk about healing, I look at healing more in a sense of becoming more self-aware and then thinking of better methods to overcome those triggers or in those traumas that you know you have. Not necessarily that you're going to be perfect or nothing is ever going to bother you again, because I mean, your traumas and your triggers and everything that happened to you in the past are a part of your testimony. So what I realized is, because I had that low self-esteem, it really played a role in me like suffocating my partner, me being afraid that they're going to leave me. And so that going on the journey with God was so important because he helped me see me from his perspective. He helped me see all the great qualities about myself. He helped me see how brilliant and wise I was. He even made me wiser through his word. He showed me how knowledgeable I was, how I have a little sense of humor, how beautiful he made me to be. Like I just started seeing myself through God's perspective. Do I have my days? Yeah, we all have our days, but we just like we looking in the mirror and we like, I ain't feeling it today. Okay, we all have those days. But for the most part, I look at God and I'm like, thank you, God. I'm loving what you did with this masterpiece, like humbly speaking. And my boyfriend is an addition to it because he pumps my head up. He's going to tell me how beautiful I am. He's going to tell me how smart I am. He's going to tell me how thankful he is for me. But I'm not needing him to give me that validation because that validation is already coming from God. And so I think that's the difference is you shouldn't need it. You shouldn't need it, like desperately need it, because you don't have it and now you're relying on your partner to pick you up. You should rely on God to continue to fill your cup up and God to continue to pick you up. And then your partner is just an addition. He's the overflow. I would say that's how it happened within a relationship sense. But I want to also talk about it from a being single sense, even as like a teenager or even in college. Whereas I, through that abandonment trauma, I a lot of times went after the guys that didn't deserve me or the guys that were emotionally unavailable, or that would ghost you, or the guys that they were here at one point, they were like breadcrumb you. They were here at one point, they were gone the next, so they'll do just enough to keep you on their sphere. Even when it came to the good guys, you didn't want the good guys. You wanted the guy that was the bad boy. And what I realized is, now that I'm healed, I want the good guy. I want the guy who can buy me the flowers, take me on trips, tell me I'm beautiful, is consistent. Like, I don't want the bad boy. And at the growing up, college, middle school, high school, like, you wanted that bad boy. And if you're attracted to that, yes, obviously sometimes bad boys are cute. I mean, we're not gonna sit here and lie and say they aren't. But if you're attracted to the inconsistency and the butterflies, which is actually not a good thing that I learned, I was attracted to the fact that when they were gone, I'm questioning what's happening. And so when they came back, I started to feel worthy. Once again, I think subconsciously that's having to do with my abandonment trauma, because my dad left. When I even left, he never was in the picture and he never came. So when someone leaves and I'm wondering what's happening and I have this low self-esteem and I'm like, what is wrong? What is, my anxiety is high. I'm thinking of everything I probably said that was wrong, when in reality, they just ain't worth nothing. I mean, I don't want to say that because, all God's people are made in his image and they're worth something, but if you know, you know. So I realized that because I didn't think as much of myself, I thought so highly of that person. And it was really my love for that person, or me wanting that person, that put them on a pedestal. And because I subconsciously thought I didn't deserve them. So it was like when they would come into my life, I felt honored to even for them to be here. And then when they left, it was just kind of like my anxiety is going. I'm thinking all these things. I'm thinking about them. And then when they came back, it was like, oh my God, she wants to be with me. And I'm so excited about it because I didn't see my value. And that's what abandonment trauma does to women. Like, we will not see our value. And then I'm just so happy I found God, because a lot of us in the world are so worried about money. We're so worried about status, so worried about power, but we are so broken on the inside. It's not even funny. And so when I found God, I started to see myself as worthy. I started seeing myself as royalty, because I'm the daughter of a king. And so because I understand that I am the daughter of the king and I am who he called me to be, I am talented, I have purpose, I have so many things going for myself. Oh, you're not coming in and out of my life. I need consistency, because we are building purpose. And once I started to have a purpose and a mission attached to my life, it just made me think higher of myself, and not in a cocky way, because it's in a humble way, because I can't have anything without God. There is no, oh, I could do it on my own. It's that he created me to be this. I am a daughter of a king. And so I move differently. I don't move the same way. I'm not letting a man come in and out my life. I'm not letting someone mess with me when they feel like it, because that's not attractive to me. That shows me immaturity. And why would I be attracted to that? That shows me that maybe you have some healing to do, because if you are the type of man who likes to play with women's feelings, who lies and all that stuff, it is now so unattractive to me. I don't care how cute you are. It's not even just about the looks. Now I'm looking at what's going on spiritually within a person. Do you got a relationship with God? How do you handle conflict? Do you know how to communicate your feelings? Like, how do you handle me when you're angry? How do you talk to me when you're angry? Because that was another thing I realized is when a man would get angry, I would let him talk to me any kind of way and really go back and forth with him. But now that I realize who I am in God's kingdom, it's like, I'm not letting any man talk to me any kind of way. Now, don't get it wrong. Like, if someone gets angry and they yell at you, okay, that's normal stuff, but you're not cussing me out. You're not calling me outside my name. And even in my relationship, like, my boyfriend does not call me outside my name. We don't do that type of stuff. It wasn't until I got with my boyfriend that I realized what true love looked like, because it's consistent. It's kind. He's so patient with me. It made me realize that what I was dealing with was something I was putting myself through, and I was attracting basically the same guy with a different face. When we talk about trauma, abandonment trauma, this is like one of the ways. It's like, if you find yourself constantly attracted to the bad boy, and I'm not just saying that he's not going to be cute anymore, because looks are looks. If they look good, they look good. But I mean, you have to get to the point where it's not just about what's going on on the exterior of a person, but what is really on the inside of them. Because now I'm attracted to your mind. How do you think? I love how my boyfriend strives to solve my problems. Like, are you a problem solver? How can we communicate during conflict? When I bring a problem to you, am I just tripping? Or is this something that we can talk through? Do you hear me? If I do bring a problem, because I know we were raised differently, so if I do bring a problem that you didn't even think about, how do we move forward from here? It's like it's a completely different thing. And no, I'm not just going to be impressed by someone not cheated on me. That's the bare minimum. So once again, ways that abandonment trauma popped up of like even what I allowed with when it came to men. I didn't plan the script, but this good. I mean, I didn't plan the outline, but this pretty good to me. Even now, I think vetting men has become so important to me. I mean, I'm in a relationship now, but the understanding of vetting a man, because I think at that time, hookup culture has you in the idea of that you just sleep with him. Oh, he look good, you don't sleep with him on the third date. You don't sleep with him on a third date, then blase blase. But it's like, no, you need to take time to vet men. And honestly, according to the Bible, you shouldn't even be hopping in the bed with a man before he's your husband. Because in reality, that is supposed to be something that's saved for your husband. That's a whole different conversation, because that's getting into like soul ties and why you can't leave that man because of what's happening. But also, what I realize is when you are broken in that way, you are attracting lessons. So, and that's why I think the work is so important, because I think the more you heal, you begin to attract people, you begin to attract men and even friends that align with who the new you and who you are becoming. But I feel like when I was in that low confidence or low self-esteem type of mode, I was attracting men that kind of were lost themselves. Because and it's actually funny, because the healed me, the healed version of me now can kind of sense when a man has low self-esteem, even if he tries to cover it with cockiness. Like, a lot of times I could tell, like, oh, he's really trying to prove himself, or it's just things you can, when you are out of the mind frame of low self-esteem and you are actually seeing people for who they are, not lust, not through sexual temptation, but really for who they are, you actually get to see things from a different standpoint. It's just kind of like, okay, obviously he still has some stuff to work on. Not even from a judging sense, but it's just like I become self-aware of my things. So it's like that person you put on a pedestal, you realize that they couldn't have even loved you properly if they wanted to, because they don't even love themselves properly. That's why they out here just swinging and slinging and everything around town because they don't even love themselves properly. So then it's like God opening my eyes to myself allowed me to actually see those men for who they are, and it just removed the rose tinted glasses. Where now it's like I want a man who's healed or doing the work like I'm doing it. And once again, not to say all this as if the person you're going to be with is going to be perfect, because my boyfriend isn't perfect, but it's about those basic foundational things, or someone willing to put in the work in that consistency. And also going to the Bible, what it says about what love is, and matching it up to your partner. Love isn't perfect. Eve bit the apple, but does it match these qualities? Now, another way in my adult life, because we're kind of talking about, middle school, we're talking about high school, college. Now, in my adult life as an entrepreneur, I start to see its effect on my personal life more. And let me show you how what the thing I'm about to talk about played out in my personal life, and then how I realized it was actually a problem within my professional life. And so that is when I was in high school and even college, I'll cut somebody off like that. Like, you can be cut off. Anyone can get cut. That was abandonment trauma response, because I would want to leave people before they left me. That was an abandonment trauma response, I realized. And anyone can get cut. Like, I didn't care. And honestly, after I cut you, I probably wasn't thinking about you ever again. Like, life moved on. And I actually used to pride myself on that. Like, once you're done, you're done. You're a goner. But then I realized that was just a coping mechanism as well. It's like, you hurt me, and instead of having conflict resolution skills and talking out the problem with you, telling you you hurt me, my defense mechanism was to go cold turkey on you. And because I had this abandonment trauma, my dad left me and I never heard of him. Well, honestly, he didn't even leave. He just was never in my life. And that's kind of how I showed up in my relationships, that anyone could be, like, I treated people as if they're disposable. And that's not okay, because the older that I got, I realized that God blesses you through people. And a lot of times, the very person that you disposed of could have been used as a blessing later down the line. And so as I got older, I started learning conflict resolution, because in my professional life, like I said, God blesses you through people. I would actually cut off certain relationships because I didn't have the understanding of how to go through a situation when it got hard. So because I didn't understand how to do that, because all my life I cut people off, you can't do that in a professional setting. You can't do that at work. You can't just cut off a boss. Well, I never really had I kind of have a boss before. I kind of worked for myself straight out of college, but I did have someone I was like a contractor for, so it's kind of like a boss. But when things got hard, I had to stick it out. I had to learn teamwork. I had to learn conflict resolution. I couldn't just cut people off. When it comes to clients, and if they get in on your nerves, you can't just cut a client off. I mean, you can, but that's not the best practice. It's about learning how to have professionalism, how to deal with conflict, how to deal with someone being mad at you and not stooping to their level. Someone being frustrated with something and trying to understand their frustration and then come up with solution. I had to learn how to be solution oriented, a problem solver. Because in a professional setting, when it comes to, if you're working with a team on a project, especially now within my business, I've been working with a lot of teams, you have to figure out conflict resolution skills. It can't just be you go off on this person because you're angry, because then I realized my childhood trauma caused anger too. You can't just go off on this person. You can't just cut them off. You have to work through it. You can really block your blessing. I think some women who have abandonment trauma, and some women who have this abandonment trauma, may just lash out at someone and say, forget that job. But low key, you needed it. You needed that job. But your pride actually stopped you from working on a solution. And because you're so prideful, you left and you really made a mistake. I actually did that in the beginning, where it was like, I did let go of a client because I was frustrated with them. And I realized it was like, oh, but I needed that client, And I realized how my pride got in the way. And I think even with abandonment trauma, it built up a sense of pride, where it's like, I'm not going to let anybody play with me. I'm not going to let anyone leave me before I leave them. And that's all pride. That's all ego. And it kind of built that subconsciously. Once again, this is me going on this long journey with God, learning this about myself. This isn't just like an overnight process. I've been on this journey for like 4 years with God. And honestly, the trauma process, I've been on it for a long time, but really on this journey with God 4 years, realizing that my pride and ego has actually blocked some blessings. And that's the reason also I wanted to talk about this, because I think that abandonment trauma, if you're not aware of it, in which this relationship with God, also getting a therapist, helps with you becoming more self-aware of how you may actually be the hindrance within your relationship. How, like, I think having a relationship with God was like the biggest wake-up call, showing me like the things I need to work on and how I held myself back. People are not disposable. If God put someone in your life, it's for a reason. Even if y'all are not the closest of friends, you don't have to burn bridges. Like, and that's kind of where I was with it. Like, I would just burn bridges and not care. But it's just like, when we look at the book of Ruth, she was known for her good reputation. That's why she got her Boaz. She was kind. Even though she had just suffered the death of her husband, she was still kind. She was still selfless. She really thought about the needs of others. She was just, her reputation, her kindness is what, drew Boaz to her. When I think of my life, I want to be a Ruth. When I think of my life, I want to be like an Esther. I want to be a Proverbs 31. I want this softness to me. Still wisdom, still strong. And what I also realize is sometimes there's strength in being able to resolve problems. There's strength in being able to understand where someone else is coming from, because it's the sign of a good leader. And so this is all stuff I'm learning now. Let me know if you want me to talk more about abandonment trauma, or if y'all have any questions, like down in the comments, because this is a topic that just has played such a big role in my life. So I wanted to touch on it because I just thought it was such a great topic. Let me know, feel free to write me, feel free to comment below, like if you resonate with any of these that I've talked about today. So share your testimonies in the comments, or even things maybe I didn't talk about today. I would love to hear y'all stories. I would love to hear your testimonies. But this is going to wrap up that podcast. I love you, queens. Don't forget to shop Holy It Girl Bible Study Journals. Tell a friend to tell a friend. Share this podcast with someone that you think it could be edifying or beneficial or just a game changer for. I love y'all, queens. Bye.